Thanks for staying with us. We're going to start with the paper review. The Nation, it's our first paper today. Federal government votes 100 billion naira for high-capacity CNG buses. £100,000 bribe trial. UK court slams tough bail terms on Dizani. Tinubu graduated from CSU, that's Chicago State University, in 1979, says school. NAF airstrikes kill terrorists in Borno. WHO okays Oxford vaccine for malaria. ECA withdrawal, states to get 1 trillion naira refund. 18 burned to death in Rivers illegal refinery fire. Obaseki inaugurates 34 SSAs and 152 SAs. And tribunal sacks Nasarawa governor. Okay, let me start with the Chicago State University. So, the Chicago State University has responded to the former Vice President Atiku Abubakar's request to get the president's certificates and credentials from the CSO and the CSU. So yesterday, based on the court order from the United States, the documents were released to Atiku Abubakar's lawyers, and the school explained that after diligence, it was able to find some diploma certificates and did not give names because of privacy concerns. But the school was able to certify that indeed the president, Tinubu, graduated from the university in 1979 with a bachelor's degree in business administration. That much was confirmed by the documentation released to Atiku Abubakar. So that's pretty much the nutshell of what we have so far. But we'll see what the PDP or Atiku how they're going to respond to this. But so far, what we have is that indeed the documentation provided to Atiku does confirm that the president did graduate from Chicago State University in 1979.
So the federal government yesterday voted 100 billion naira to facilitate the conversion of buses and bring in CNG buses. So they have 55,000 conversion kits that will be coming into the country.
Okay.
They're also looking at bringing in more buses. But at the parley that they had with the NLC and the TUC that stalled the strike for about 30 days, they reached a lot of conclusions. They suspended the strike for 30 days. The federal government to press states on wage award, the tax incentives for private sector workers that will start, and I'm hoping that, when they get the incentives, they get to increase workers' salary. 35,000 naira to be given to federal workers for 6 months. 75,000 for 75,000 naira for 15 million households. We also talked about it with the Minister for Humanitarian Affairs yesterday. Suspension of VAT on diesel for 6 months. Increased distribution of subsidized fertilizer and joint visitation to refineries. Now, they said there's pressure on the GM, what's it called, for the refineries in Port Harcourt and Warri to pick up operations. And I'm hoping that will result in progress as well.
Okay, another story?
Yeah, so in addition to that, I think the Punch said that the 35,000 naira would even go beyond 6 months.
That's a new one.
Yes, it will get to when they are able to determine the minimum wage that will now be paid the workers. Okay. So, but they are setting up a committee very soon, just a month into when they start with the 35,000 naira to see how they can easily get the new minimum wage. Yeah. So I have the story of 18 people burnt to death in Rivers, illegal refinery. So the persons have been burnt to death by fire that engulfed an illegal oil refinery site at Iba, a Mohua local government area of Rivers State. 25 others at the scene were injured when the inferno broke out on Sunday night. There was an amateur video on social media showing remains of the children, men and women that were littering the scene. So the commandant of the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps, NSCDC, Basil Igwebweze, and the Emohua local government area chairman, Chidi Lloyd, were the ones that confirmed the tragedy. And they said the death toll was 18, but some community sources said it was up to 33. They said the pregnant woman, the son of the illegal refinery operator, and a woman who was about to wed were among those people that were burnt to ashes. Now, the owner of the refinery, John Bodo, sustained several injuries. It was his son, who just graduated recently from a tertiary university, that died on the spot. And the fire started like really very late. So 18 victims were burnt beyond recognition, while 25 injured persons were rescued. So they said they've been complaining about, having these illegal refineries, and it was just so unfortunate that there were a lot of young people who were involved in this. They keep telling people you can't have illegal refineries because anything can happen and then you get the blowback. Imagine the owner now dying, getting injured, and his son, who just finished school, dying in the process.
Any other story in Nation?
Yes, I have the story on Diazani. £100,000 bribe trial. UK court slams tough bail terms on Diazani. EFCC to press on with her extradition. So, Ms. Alison Madueke, who I think she was a minister 2015, is still facing trial in the UK court. And this time around, the bail terms have really gone up. I want to list them. So she has a curfew band on her now between 11 p.m. and 6 a.m. She has to go around with an electronic tag to be worn by her at all times. And the unfortunate part of EFCC insisting that once this is agreed, she has to be extradited immediately. Very sad. So she's the second person who would be facing something similar to this after the James Ibori case in 2012.
Do you remember?
I hope this really serves as a deterrent to other ministers.
This woman is beyond touchable. So let them first bring her first before they detail us.
Exactly.
She come us first.
Okay, let's move on to the Punch.
Somebody that said they cannot even get us.
6 months allowance, federal government to spend 315 billion naira. Labour suspends strikes for 30 days. 33 fared killed in illegal refinery explosion. Bribe-taking policemen return to Lagos Road. Extort 25,000 from driver. Marketers disagree with Tinubu tax advisor on refinery sale. Bribery, UK court restricts Diazani's movement. EFCC begins extradition. And Chicago Varsity releases Tinubu's record to Atiku. Let me take the marketers, although I don't have much of their own perspective from this article. But most importantly, what happened was that the chairman of the Presidential Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms Committee, Mr. Taiwo Oyedele, said that Nigerians should pray that the country's refineries don't work. And this is why he said so. He said that, he was speaking at the Platform's Independence Anniversary event. He said that if our refineries produce petroleum, the issue with the inefficiencies in the management might actually make a litre of petrol much more expensive, or probably the most expensive in the entire world. So his issue is that the inefficiency in the management of it. Said Nigerians should say, if only our refineries, Nigerians usually think that once our refineries start working, petrol will be cheaper. He said that might be far from the truth, because we've spent 10 trillion naira maintaining our refineries even for the past many years, and that even if it starts working today, the issue of inefficiency must be addressed. So he would rather they sell off the refineries to the private sector, who are then able to manage it better than we can. Although marketers have generally disagreed with him, but the article I have doesn't really tell us the perspective. But generally, they are totally in a disagreement with the chairman on this suggestion of selling the refineries to the private sector. Okay, any other story in the Punch?
Yes, I have a motorist lamenting the return of some policemen who specialize in extorting motorists around the traffic light in a Sherry Beggar area of the state. The policemen said to be attached to the Sherry police have been carrying out their activities. They've returned. So what happened was, I think in June 28, 2022, Punch had to do, an investigation in that. I remember we took the story on the table here, that there were some unscrupulous people who parade themselves as policemen who are extorting. They're actually policemen who are extorting people on that traffic light at that Isheri Beggar Road. So, they catch you and they say you have, committed a crime, and then they promise to take you to the station to pay a fine of 120. And so this particular man has been, Sunday Oroleke fell victim recently to it. They were able to extort 25,000 naira. As a matter of fact, they took him to the POS to withdraw the money, only for him to carry out an investigation and realize that they were illegal in doing that. The then commissioner of the state had, sent them away before. But after he left, they just resumed back. They've been working there for 3 months. And Punch has been trying to reach the police to get their take on it. So we haven't heard that. Hopefully they will do something and take those men out of.
Still reviewing Nation. Okay, let's move on now to the Daily Sun. Strike. FG reaches truce with NLC and TUC. FG begins Diazani's extradition. Economy. Buhari's ex-spokesman counters Tinubu's wife. COVID-19 scientists win Nobel Prize for medicine. Terrorism. 22 Katsina local governments not safe Governor Rada tells Inspector General of Police. Fire kills 20 persons at bunkering site in Rivers. 3 commuter buses, 4 motorcycles, others burnt in attack by armed men in Ebonyi. How I would have handled subsidy removal and palliatives distribution, says Peter Obi. Okay, which story?
So the presidential, candidate of the Labour Party at this February 25th, 2023 presidential elections, Mr. Peter Gregory Obi, is calling for a law to criminalize and sanction the use of the USD, United States American dollar, as underground or shadow currency in Nigeria for economic transactions. So he said that it's wrong for Nigerians to be spending the USD within the country in a place where Naira is the legal tender, that all other countries, dollar is only used largely for international transactions and not as an alternative to their legal tender currency. So he, talked about the fact that it was being shared to the delegates in the last party primaries ahead of the 2023 general elections, and it was so bad that everybody wanted to have, that USD. And so he's calling the National Assembly to push for a law to criminalize the use of foreign currencies for local economic transactions. Then he went ahead to also talk about how he would have, carried out the subsidy removal. He would have cushioned the effects first. He would work with stakeholders before finally removing it, among other things. Yeah.
Okay, another story, son. No. So I have a story. Katsina State Governor Diko Rada has described the extent of the state of insecurity in the area, lamenting about 22 out of 34 local government areas are not safe due to activities of terrorists. He spoke to the Inspector General of Police yesterday, Mr. Kayode Egbetokun, at the police headquarters in Abuja. He was saying that the governor solicited for more support from the police to check the menace within his state. Says that he appreciated the work they've done so far, but he really needed their support because 22 out of his 34 local governments are absolutely not safe for habitation. He said result of a forest with length of 800 kilometers, bordering about 8 local governments, our administration has already recruited 1,500 youths who are currently undergoing training on how to work with security personnel in fight against insecurity. He also just saying that they're on ground to support the police the best they can if required, but they need their urgent support in those communities. Moving on now quickly to Vanguard. FG Labour reached truce, nationwide strike suspended. Tribunal sacks Nasarawa governor in split decision. Palliatives. Government making announcements with limited thinking, says Peter Obi. Manufacturers query federal government's 6-month VAT waiver on diesel. FG draws roadmap to make Nigeria total digital economy. Africa won't rise by prayer and fasting, says Professor Lumumba. 35 persons burned to death at Rivers illegal refinery site. And APC mocks 8-man NNPP London protest, slams Kano governor for blackmailing federal government. Okay, which story?
Okay, so I have Professor Lumumba. He was one of the speakers at this year's platform event hosted by the Covenant Nation in Igomu, and he talked about Africa. He said Africa has become a continent where every election there's a conflict, and for us to move forward, to change, governance must be dealt with. Adding that if the question of governance was left out, the continent's progress would be stalled. He said every election, because of the pursuit of power, cutthroat competition where our throats are actually cut. And we have a problem in that direction, and the sooner we resolve that, the safer we will be. Africa can rise, and Africa will rise, but it is not by it's not going to rise by prayers and fasting, which is a direct statement. And he talked about that freedom will not be given to Africa on a silver platter, but that the continent must stand up and take responsibility for itself. I completely agree with him.
Any other story?
A good one, yes.
Vanguard?
Yes, just in addition to the other story I took, the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, the last election, was saying that this government has been making announcements without thinking, that and that's why it's been producing limited outcomes. That normally they're supposed to have, like a team that would decide on the after effects of their pronouncements and their policies before they announce it. So what he's saying is that they are suffering from what he calls announcement of effect. There should be well thought out policy by a properly constituted economic team before making these announcements. It's not just like making announcements in the market square and then when the people revolt, you go back and you change it. And it cited the 25,000 naira addition that would be added to the workers while the NLC talked about it. They went back again and increased it to 35,000 naira. That this should not be so. And he advised that this is the time the federal government has to work in coordination between the federal, state, and local governments to pull through this difficult time. Everybody must be working hand in hand. And said some things that he would have done differently.
Okay. So the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, MAN, they commended the 7.5 waiver on the VAT on diesel. However, they resisted or they rejected the idea for it being just for 6 months. The Director General of MAN, that's Segun Ajayi Kadri, in a chat with Vanguard, was saying that it was important that they must accept the 7.5 waiver. However, the federal government's announcement of making it 6 months is indeed it's kind of troublesome for them. And the reason is because they believe that the manufacturing sector is such an important key part of this economy, the reviving of the economy, such that they need more time to give more leeway for them to be able to do more work in the sector. So you also recall that MAN had stridently advocated for the removal of VAT on diesel, especially because it has actually become a major input into their production process. They rely on diesel to power our machines and meet our energy needs in the face of all this abysmal power supply from the national grid. You are also aware that the prices have gone above 1,000 naira per litre. So right now, they really need the VAT to be completely removed, at least for now, until further notice, not for 6 months. That's their own recommendation.
Let me add another story before we go. So the Ebonyi State Police Command has said that gunmen have burnt 3 commuter buses, 4 motorcycles and 1 tricycle in the state. The Ebonyi State Police Public Relations Officer, SP Onome, was the one who told the news agency of Nigeria, and they said the attack occurred in Ezambo, or Hauku local government area of the state, along the Enugu-Abakaliki Expressway. And he said the armed men were suspected to be members of IPOB. But thankfully, there was no life that was lost at the time. So she says on October 2nd, armed men suspected to be IPOB members in Siena car attacked commuter buses, tricycles, and motorcycles at Ezambo Junction. They burnt down 3 commuter buses, 4 motorcycles, and 1 tricycle. However, the operatives of the command have been dispatched to the scene, and they'll find a way to get those people.
Okay, the Nigerian Tribune very quickly. This one is still not taken. Osun community gets electricity after 91 years. WHO recommends new cheap malaria vaccine for use. Nobel Prize goes to scientists behind the mRNA COVID vaccines. Olubadan threatens to disown children, wives over financial allegation against brother. Lagos Ibadan cargo rail operating below capacity, say NRC. Non-interest banking, Taj Bank leads in Tier 1 capital PBT. 15 feared burnt to death during the bunkering activity in Rivers. And tribunal sacks Sule, declares PDP candidate as Nasarawa governor. Runke, you want to start?
Yes. So on Monday this week, the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine was given to Professor Kathleen Carrico and Drew Westman. So Drew Westman and Kathleen were both, they were students in the same university somewhere in 1990. And all of a sudden, Carrico just got, so Drew was recognized as the Nobel winner for the COVID vaccine at the time of the pandemic, but with further investigation, it was acknowledged that he didn't do it alone. There was somebody else by his side who is Professor Carrico. And it's interesting because we always know Nobel Awards goes to literacy. So for the first time, we're having something in science coming back to us in Nigeria. So,
Nima?
Yes, I have the Olubadan story. So the Olubadan of Ibadan land, Oba Senator Lekan Balogun, has threatened to disown any of his children or wives found to be involved in the allegation of financial impropriety against his brother, Senator Kola Balogun. And the first son, that's the Aremo Kabiyesi, the first male child of the Olubadan, had done a 4-page letter to address the family and called on Senator Balogun, that's the brother to the President Olubadan, Senator Kola Balogun, to account for the Olubadan's funds and properties that were in his care within 7 days. But the Olubadan disagreed. He said his attention had been drawn to that letter. He finds it grievous allegations leveled against my kids and loving and only surviving brother. And he said, by some of my children, which I am aware has gone viral. It is unfortunate to note that none of these allegations has an atom of truthfulness. That's the Olubadan defending his brother now. And he says, whatsoever is in it, and only the author of such is baseless. I must publicly acknowledge the invaluable role of my brother and that he has been playing in my life. Is the only one that has been with me through thick and thin. He defended his brother, finished, and even apologized and says that the behavior of his children, especially his son, who is the orchestrator of the letter, is he should accept his behavior of his nephew as childish. He says, I will be eternally grateful to the Almighty Allah for blessing me with such a wonderful brother. And since the publication came out, all attempts to speak to the author of the offensive, odorous report has been futile. Within family, and he says every family has their issue. I detest and abhor anything of such, and I won't mind to disown whoever among my children, all wives, who chose such dishonorable, disparaging path. However, Jaremo insists that in the spirit of transparency and fairness and equity, that the Senator Kola Balogun must respond to the allegations leveled against him, which include monies gathered during the installation of bales and mortgages running into millions of naira. It's a family matter, Sha.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
But I like the position of the Olu.
Yeah. You think?
Oh,
I don't know,
Ibadan.
it can be debated. It can be...
So Araromi Okeodo in Ife South local government area of Osun State at the weekend went agog after being supplied with electricity first time after 91 years.
Hey, blood of Jesus.
Hey, blood of Jesus. So speaking at the inauguration of the 50 kWp hybrid solar power plant.
For independence.
I'm telling you. 1930-something. Built by Sholep Energy Limited, the managing director, chief executive officer, Olalikon, said the project will power the whole community. He also said the project will cover about 700 houses in the community, and saying that what they have going on, they are still going to have leftover, so they need more help. So according to him,
more to distribute.
Yes, more to distribute. Said they came in October 2018. And they realized that the people did not have access to electricity and clean water. So they started providing them 20,000 liters of water on a daily basis. And they've been providing 24-hour uninterrupted electricity for 10 years. So they have the necessary equipment, including the 110 kVA generating set, which has been newly installed. But they are seeking government cooperation now. They said they are facing a lot of challenges. There's no good road in the environment. They will need that to be able to continue. And the project was financed by Sholep with the support of the World Bank and Rural Electrification Agency. The state governor is excited about it, and he's promising to partner with independent energy companies to light up some other parts of the community.
Wow.
Like to
It
see
is
that
strange, man.
Celebrating.
because that place na
91 years.
If you talk about electricity, my place na town.
Yes, so.
The place.
Natan.
What's Natan?
Natan.
Oh. Can we move on? That's all we can take on front page review. When we return, this is Nima. We'll go to our hot top next segment. Stay with us, we'll be right back. Natan.
Stay tuned. Your View will be right back.